We are here talking all things friendship and friendship with women. Let's see what your face looks like when we think about friendships and women. So one of the reasons that I started the Rise Girls program is that I always felt like, as women and even as young girls, we're not taught to be friends. We're sent off to school and it's like, go make some friends. And your friend definition really is derived from how you grow up and watching relationships in your family or your parents. And so I thought it was a good topic for us to kind of dive into in terms of, what makes a good friend, and not only what makes a good friend, what a good friend is not. Right? Because that's and it's not even like when you meet someone, you're like, it's usually like if someone comes up to you, they're like, I want to be your friend. You're just kind of like, what? Like friendships just kind of evolve. Like, what do you mean? I've had that happen to me, and I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, that's kind of weird. But at the end of the day, I was like, that's kind of brave and bold that somebody would like seek you out and be like, hey, I think you're cool. I want to be your friend. So let's just kind of like dive into this like topic. Like, what is a good friend to you, Noemi?
A good friend is definitely someone that is trustworthy, right? I'm a fairly open person, but like I can't be that way with everybody because I'm a leader because of my life or whatever. So I definitely value someone who can be trusted, who's not going to slander your name out there. I've definitely had people who have been friends with me. I thought we were cool, but this person's saying all of this extra stuff. Or if somebody's even, talking trash about me to you, I feel like that's a problem. So I value trustworthy. I value somebody who can be there to listen, but also speak into my life. I can be hard-headed. So that's another reason why you need to be trustworthy, because if I can trust you, then I can sit and just listen to you tell me about myself, because sometimes I need it. A good friend's gonna show up when you need them for your high moments and your low moments. If you can't celebrate with me, you're not a good friend. But if you can't cry with me either, you're also not a good friend. Like, I need you to be able to do both and not just be here when I'm down, but also be here when I'm up.
Wow, that's really good. So someone who's trustworthy, these are things that are important to you. Because I think that's another thing, is that the things that are important to you may not necessarily be important to another person. And sometimes, like, as friends, we think the other person should understand like what our like qualifications are of a friend. So have you met someone who maybe they weren't those things in the beginning, but through time became those things?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes we can be a little too quick with our first impression. I think I've learned that lesson a lot over the past few years. Like, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if this person's it. But like, through time, through conversation, eventually you get to have an exchange of, okay, like, this is what I needed in a friend. And you're offering that up to me, and I can offer you what you need as well. It does take time to build a really good friendship, right? Some people you just click with off the bat, but most people that's not the case, and you do need to give them a chance. You might start off a little bit like, okay, we see each other at church, hello, but then that grows, and eventually you're going out to dinner. Eventually you meet my mom, and if you meet my mom, we're friends. Like, we're friends.
Yes. And so, Melina, what is a good friend to you?
I think it's really hard to answer that question outside of the context of like, what season are you in? Because I think that's really important too to consider in like, what is a good friend? Because somebody that was a good friend to me in a previous season may not be a good friend to me now, because I might just have outgrown them, and that doesn't make me a better person than them. It just means that I'm in a different place, right? So it really matters, like, what do I need right now? Kind of like what you said, like, where do I need to grow? Who's pushing me to grow in that? So, like, for me, I am kind of a shy person sometimes, and so I need friends who can, like, pull me out of that. You know, people who see me for more than what I'm presenting in the moment, people who see my potential and want to pull that out of me in love and not from a place of judgment. So those are some things that are really important to me.
So a person who sees potential in you and doesn't judge you. And so have you met anyone who maybe didn't necessarily fit those qualifications, like initially, but you guys kind of like grew into the season of it?
You mean like someone who judged me in the beginning?
Yeah.
I'll definitely say that there were people I didn't like when I met that I eventually became friends with, and I think part of that was God growing in me my instant judgment of other people. So sometimes what I perceive as judgmental might be their way of loving that I just haven't understood yet. So yeah, I think it's always a good learning opportunity when things like that present. So
I think that's a really good point. What you thought was judgment was actually something else in them. Because I think you said it, is that sometimes, like, initially when we meet someone, like, we can judge them, and then God is showing us, like, those qualities, like, that we don't like that are actually in us. And okay, so like your friends now, like what else is important to you besides non-judgment and, you know, your friends having the ability to kind of pull things out of you?
oh my gosh, I love my friends so much. I think for me, one of the biggest things about them is that they know how to make me laugh. Like, I can have a good time with them. I think this was said in another panel, like somebody that brings the inner child out of you, not in an immature way, but in that, like, you know, when you were young and you were carefree. I mean, I'm still young, but when I was really young and carefree. So people who can make you laugh, like you said, people who are trustworthy, and just people who embody the qualities that I want to be, people who inspire me to be a better person and make me feel like I can.
And Flo, what is a good friend to you?
That is a loaded question. But as you ladies were talking, I'd say someone who shares the same values as you. I think as I progressed from a teenager to a young adult, and I'd say I'm kind of an adult now, my values have grown and they've developed. The things that I cared about when I was in college aren't the things that I care about now. And church being one of my biggest focuses now where I am in this season, I'm here often, in youth group often, mentoring girls often. So having friends who understand that's important to me, and I'll be here Sunday sometimes from 7:30 to 11, and they understand that doesn't mean I don't love you, that just means at this point in my life, you know, that's where I'm at. And a lot of the times when your friends see that your values are shifting, so will theirs. I've seen a lot of my friends come to Christ and, you know, are an influence now, volunteer more consistently because they've seen me do it, and now we're all doing it together. So a friend who shares the same values. And if they're not the same, understanding the values that I have and respecting them.
Well, that was great. And I think the important thing about that, because if we had 20 people up here, each person would start out with something different, right? And so you started out with trust, right? You started out with values, and you started out with non-judgment, right? And so if your friends were here, 9 times out of 10, they would start out with a different, you know, characteristic or value that's, you know, near and dear to them. So if that's the case, then how do we push our friendships forward when everyone is so different? Because that's how like we get into complicated relationships, because this is very important to us. It's the top on our list, but it's not necessarily the top on someone else's list. So how do you navigate through that as friends?
I think it usually starts with a conversation. If you're close with them and you can just really be honest and transparent, like, hey, I see that you're not really on the path that I'm at. So where are we? What does this make us right now in this season? That doesn't mean we don't have to not hang out all the time, but that just means, hey, sometimes I may not be able to have this type of conversation with you because you're not here with me or you don't understand these things yet. But yeah, I think you get to a point in a friendship where you just need to have those honest conversations and conversations with yourself as well. What do I really care about? What are my values? And if these people are with me, they're with me. And if they're not, I love you and I'm gonna love you from a distance. Yeah.
What's the hardest thing that you've had to face in a friendship?
So I actually tend to avoid conflict. I don't like fighting with my friends. It feels weird. And I'm the kind of person who's like a silent sufferer, right? So it's like, ooh, that thing she does really annoys me. But if I say it, like, I don't know if I'll say it nice. I don't know if I'll be able to not hurt her feelings. So I'm just gonna hold back. Which is tough because then you guys aren't on the same page. It's off and you can both sense it, but you're just kind of avoiding this big awkward thing, and it either ends up that we're not friends anymore, or we blow up, and then it's that's not good either. So I definitely tend to find that it's really hard to, especially transitioning friendships. I have a lot of friends who are married. I have a lot of friends who are married, and I am not. And so I think that's probably one of the hardest things I've faced, is having to realize okay, you're married and our relationship is gonna change. And that doesn't mean that's bad, but it's your priority is now your husband. He's not your boyfriend that we're gonna go out, eat dinner, and talk about anymore. That's your husband. And so I get it. We're not gonna stay out till 2 a.m. We're not gonna do that kind of thing, and that's okay. It just needs to shift. Our priorities shift, and then now that I'm getting older, it's now y'all are having kids, and ooh, that's my niece or nephew, but I also don't want to spend 6 hours at your house with this baby. And so transitions in friendships are super. They can make or break you, right? If you can't travel to my next season in life with me, and not everybody can. Right. If you can't, then that stinks. Friendship breakups are almost just as bad as relationship breakups sometimes, depending on how they go. So that's been the toughest thing I think I've had to face for sure.
Yes, transitions and friendships. All my life. I mean, they can really be difficult, even if you are the best communicator and you communicate well through it. And especially if a person, whether they're moving or they got married or sometimes divorced, depending on what's going on, making that transition or changing seasons, I find that to be a difficult thing. And so speaking of seasons, because you mentioned that, depending on the season that you're in, as a recent college grad and now in grad school, what has the season changed? What has that been for you? Because you were in college in Florida, you had your roommate was your best friend. Now you're back here. What has that transition been like for you with that relationship?
Wow. It's been hard. It's been really hard, just because, so you're asking about that one specific friend. It's hard because with that friend, she continued one more year. And so we were in very literal different seasons in our lives, where I am trying to go into grad school and she's more focusing on undergrad and on a new relationship that is forming, and I had to kind of give her the space to be able to do that. And I think that was really helpful too, because sometimes you can become too dependent on one person. I think I was kind of content with having like one really good friend rather than like a village of friends. And so having that space has made me realize like I love you, but I need to love other people too, because I can't only draw from you. That's not fair. And I can't put all my weight on you. That's not fair either. You're not God, so I can't do that to you. So I think it's been a tough but a healthy and a necessary transition, because like my only friend cannot be over the phone, so I had to make more friends. And like I said, I really love my friends, so I'm really grateful for this time.
So let's talk about, like, a lot of people say girl tribes or sisterhood, like my village. Let's talk about your village, okay? And you don't necessarily have to say their names, but what are the attributes in your village that help you be a better person?
I'd say someone, like when Lena said, who pushes you and sees the potential in you. Definitely, a lot of the times you can't see the good things about yourself, and you need someone to be like, you know what, Flo, you're actually really, really good at, organizing and planning. Like, you should pursue that a little bit more. And then you have friends like No, who chase me down because I like to shelter in when things, kind of come crashing down in my life, and I just love to disconnect and try to figure out on my own. But she'll just call me up like 10 times in a row and be like, hey, where are you? Do you need me? I got you. And then you need the friends who just, you could have a good time. Who you can just be like, hey, let's go to Six Flags today, and then y'all just go hang out. So I think you have to figure out what you need for yourself, and then figure out who's already around you, figure out who's in your community, and if you're bold enough to say, hey, can we be friends? Or if you just want to develop a friendship that you've already made and grow it a little bit more.
Yeah, my tribe definitely are the people who, build me up, who each and every single one of them in my tribe is definitely a special character. I surround myself with a lot of strong women, because I am a strong woman, and a lot of them have attributes that I aspire to be like. And so whether they are women who are older than me, who are, speaking to me and developing me in certain areas, or whether it's friends like Flo who can be silly and or I can like call to and be like, hey, I'm a little sad today. And, Flo a couple of weeks ago dropped off like a goodie bag of stuff because my aunt had passed and I was sad about it. And it's little things like that, I also learned from them how to love other women too. So the reason why I can chase down Flo and say, hey girl, like, I'm not gonna stop calling you until you call me back, is because I had other women who were friends to me who showed me how to be like that, who showed me that that's important. And I think that's a good, all my friends don't have to think like me or be like me. I want to be able to learn from you something, whether it's about life or books or relationships. Like, I want to be able to learn and glean from you, and I want to be able to teach you too, because I have knowledge as well.
It's good.
For me, so all my friends are really unique, but one of the things that I feel like is consistent among all of them is that they're able to celebrate even the small victories with me, which I think is really important. So it's not just things like graduations and birthdays, which they will celebrate and it's great, but even things like, I didn't want to exercise today and I did, I know that there will be people there to cheer me on for that, and I think that that's amazing. Because, the expression, like, little makes much. So people celebrating my little inspires me to be able to make it into much. So I'm really grateful that that's present in my friends.
Well, that's amazing. Like, I know that this discussion will spark in other women, because that's one of the things that is very difficult for us as women. You hear this saying a lot, like, it's easier for me to be friends with guys. And, because women are catty, or, they're this or that. But at the end of the day, the reason that even we're doing the DASH Takeover is that we need to learn how to celebrate one another. And we need to celebrate differences, because since the beginning of time, God made us all completely different. Like, I don't want a friend who's just like me. I don't want a friend who's trying to act like me. I'm trying to be better, so don't act like my yesterday, because I'm trying to be different for tomorrow. But this conversation is a conversation that I hope more women have, and that we learn to celebrate each other more. We learn to accept each other's differences, and we know that we all lead with what's important to us, and it's not going to be the most important thing to someone else. So as we come to a close, I know that all of you are like women of accountability, women of great friendships. That's why you were asked to be a part of this panel. Just say one or two things about not only being a good friend, but also being like a mentor to others and also being mentored.
I guess I would say don't be afraid of being exposed in a good way. I think good relationships are like that. Even when you're mentoring somebody, I think that sometimes that can expose things in you, like lack of good communication, things like that. Because I think one of the things that relationships can do for you is help you to grow as a person, and to grow. You were talking about this the other day on Facebook. Like, to grow, you need to be able to be vulnerable first about the things you need to grow in. So I guess that's my suggestion. Be okay with being open, because none of us are perfect, so it's okay.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Being okay to being exposed.
For sure. I think I never really grew up knowing that you need a mentor. And that whole idea of mentorship and accountability was foreign to me until I started coming to church, and I realized the importance of it. I think I said this to you one time: you have to be poured into to be able to pour out. So I have my accountability for my pastors and even my friendships, where they can tell me about myself and be like, hey, Flo, you need to be a little bit more transparent. I need to not have to push you all the time to get information out of you. And they do it out of love. They want to see the best in you, and they want to see you grow better. They want to see you reach your potential, but you have to give so that you could take as well. And I think that translates into the young girls that I mentor. And I see the difficulty of mentorship in that light too, because sometimes you need to tug a little more with high school girls. But just giving them constant love and being consistent, and just letting them know that it's okay to be open. Like, we go through the same things like I've experienced, and I'm just here to help you and encourage you. So yeah, transparency and honesty is the biggest thing with mentorship.
I would say to let relationships, especially when it comes to mentorship, organically form. I think and be spiritually led to that person. I think a lot of times, what I've seen is people really trying to oh, that person looks so cool, I want them to be my mentor, and immediately jumping into this relationship that actually takes a lot of work, that actually takes a lot of trust, and pulls a lot out of one another, right? And so don't look for the right things, right? God looks at the heart. God doesn't look at our outward appearance. And just because somebody looks like they'd be great, just because somebody looks like, oh yeah, they're super talented, they must be able to teach me this isn't necessarily the case, right? And I say that especially when it comes to life mentorship. Of course, when you're thinking about, careers or jobs, you're gonna look at those things a little bit differently. But if I want somebody to pour into my life, I really want that to grow and build organically. I don't wanna just jump into something. Sophie's my mentor, and so Ambassador Sophie she was like, yeah, I've been watching you for a while, but I wasn't gonna force myself on you. And we had to let that build and let that grow, and now we're able to have an exchange and trust each other. But it didn't happen immediately, right? It took a couple years, honestly, to get to that place. So let it form, let it grow, don't force it.
And I like what you just said, because I want to just kind of tie this into friendship as well. But you see how you said the word trust again? And so it's like a lot of times when we're looking for mentors, it's almost like it really parallels what we look for in friendships. And I think that is really important, because I like to say my mentors, The reason that I love them is that they don't lord over me. And I remember, like, one of my significant mentors, I think we were about 4 years into our relationship, and she sent me a card in the mail, and she signed it like, your friend. And I remember thinking, we're friends? Oh my God, this is so awesome. But it was one of those things that really taught me that at some point in your mentorship, there should, be this line that you reach where you are friends, but you still respect and honor your mentor. But I think for women, just as a whole, what we look for in a mentor is often what we look for in a friend, just at a higher level, because we're aspiring to be different and to be better, and you begin to see those parallels. So my hope is that this conversation continues with all the women that are watching. One of the Rise books that I wrote for the young girls is called Shine, and that book is about friendships. And for me, I've always felt like this isn't the exhaustive list of the kind of friends that you have, but I've always thought like there are 5 like kind of friends that we should all have. The conscientious friend, which you said, which is your friend that shares the same values. Your carefree friend, the friend that you can have fun with. Your confidant friend, which is the friend that you put your trust in. And so when you look at those 3, and I'm trying to remember the other 2, do you remember? Creative. Your creative friend, and then there's the, why did my mind just go blank? The creative, it's London is the, she's the scientist. Connector. She's the connector friend. So we all have friends that kind of like join us to other people, friends that we can be creative with, friends that we can be conscientious with, friends that we can, that can be confidant. And the thing that I think what happens with a lot of women is that we try to put certain kinds of friends into the wrong category. And that's where we get in trouble, because like if you're out with your creative friend, you're having so much fun, right? You're being creative, you're doing stuff, and you might start sharing your secrets with them, and they're just thinking, oh, we're just talking. And next thing you know, your creative friend is out with another person. She's like, yeah, girl, Flo just told me XYZ, and like, what? Flo, you can't. So my hope is that, we dig deep and we learn how to be friends to the friends that we're with for whatever season they're in our life, because God, He says to be a friend, you must first show yourself friendly. And so God is always sending people into our lives, but sometimes we can miss it because we're looking for something else. And we miss the beautiful person that God is trying to be and bring into our lives. And so I just want to close with this story. I remember after Women's Fellowship, there was a woman that was waiting for me, and she was standing in the back of the church, and she was like, hey, do you want to go to lunch? And in my head, I was like, okay, I don't really go to lunch with people like that, but there was something like in the way that she asked me that I felt like if I said no, like it would be disappointing. And I'm really, I don't want to say I don't care about disappointing people, but it's not like anyone asking me that I say yes to everybody. I would never be able to do it, right? But there was something in that moment that I felt like, let me do it. And so we went out to dinner, and I mean, I had such a great time with her, and she's such a dear friend right now. But I remember in that moment, God showing me that I needed to be open And I never saw myself as a closed person. I'm really friendly. So I was just like, God, I'm always open. And he showed me, like myself, no, like you said, like sometimes you're judgmental. Like he showed me my judgment, even in that situation. But he showed me how sweet something could be if I just like took my own eyes off of it. And so I just offer that to everyone who's watching. Like these are our stories and about friendship and mentorship and accountability. And hopefully it pours into your life and you can develop some sweet, savory friendships. Whether it's a short season or a long season, it could really benefit your life. So thank you, ladies.
Of course, thank you.